first of all, take us into how you end up in Boston. Like, how to come together? Was it a relatively easy decision? I know at the time you said, like, it's the Red Sox. That's pretty cool. But how did they end up being the place for you to land?
Yeah, so we, as soon as free agency hit, as soon as the White Sox declined my option and we went through that period, it was, I think, 10 days after the World Series. We had a bunch of teams reach out. The Red Sox were one of them. Reached out early and often and then just kept tabs on and seeing how everything was going. But it really didn't kind of start to accelerate until we put the deadline on it ourselves. So it was probably late January. We hadn't had any really traction. It was just teams calling, just checking in. Well, we're not really right there yet. And then my wife and I sat down with my agent and we're like, look, I don't want to be in limbo all off season or all season or all spring or whatever it needs to be. So let's set a date. The date was the last day of any team to report, pitchers catchers report, which is February 15th. If we don't have a deal done by that day, we're rehabbing ourselves and we're doing a showcase in July, August, whenever that needs to be, and going about it that way. And as soon as we set the deadline, a few teams reached out, Red Sox being one of them, and just kind of progressed there. But look, I've always loved coming to Boston. I've always pitched well at Fenway, and they've never had an Aussie, which was very high on my bucket list. And then we did a Zoom call in the off season, and look, they said all the right things. Like Brandon, the head trainer, was. We don't envision a world where Liam Hendriks does not pitch for the 2024 Red Sox if everything goes smoothly. Like, perfect. That's all I need to hear. That's all I want. All I want is an opportunity to pitch this year. And that was one thing they said. And then also the fact of being able to rehab with Boston, travel with the team, was something that was really appealing to me as well.
You set August 2nd as a deadline, if you will. That's your goal.
That's my 12-month mark.
That's your 12-month mark. Did you say that to the Red Sox, and what was their reaction?
Yeah, that was. I'm like, look, my goal is to get in August. That's the 12-month mark. I'm 35. I'm not getting any younger. I've gone through enough things in the last couple of years that, look, anybody who knows my personality knows I'm going to push it. I'm going to push the boundaries. I'm going to try and get there every day and do as much as I can to make sure that I can come back as soon as possible. Like, I was meant to do 6 rounds of chemo. I only did 4 rounds. So, I mean, the similar concept. Like, I've recovered well generally, so I want to make sure that I set myself a target goal, and there's an attainable target goal where I can go out and put my best foot forward every single day, making sure that is the target day for me to get back.
No one has ever won back-to-back comeback players of the year. I mean, by definition, that's almost about. You've already come back. You're not supposed to come back again a year later.
Look, look, 5 innings 1 year. Maybe I can triple that inning total and we get to 15 this year. I don't know. But no, that is what it is. Like, I couldn't care less about the accolade. I just want to pitch. Like, my happy place is on a mound. My happy place is in a clubhouse. And look, it hasn't been the easiest last couple of years. So I'm just trying to be happy.
Let's talk about last year. You say you don't care about the accolades, but when you look back on the accolades and the reaction and the ovations and the support, was there a time this offseason, well, I guess it started earlier, right, because of the elbow, but was there a time where you sort of had that moment to put it in perspective? Because when you're grinding, right? When you're battling through it, you're battling through it. When you were done pitching for the year, and maybe because you're getting cut, you don't, because you're going right to the next thing, right? But I mean, when did
cut us in this or cut us in taking up the team?
One then the other. But was there a point where you got to, driving the car at one, you know what I mean? Was there ever that sort of moment where it all hit you?
Not really. I mean, there were some really cool experiences throughout it all. Whether it was like, the ESPYs was one of the coolest experiences I've ever been around, because you don't see too many baseballs get a chance to go to these major sporting awards, because we have opposite seasons to a lot of the major teams or the major organizations. So getting a chance to go to that, like, I was sitting right behind the Vegas Golden Knights, and I'm a huge hockey guy. So being able to sit behind those guys is fantastic. Get to talk to Aiden Hill a little bit was awesome. And sitting right next to a comedian on one side, I had Lil Wayne on the other side. Like, just the athletes, and then standing up and talking and seeing literally the best ever in their sport. Like, Michaela Schifrin sitting right directly in front of me. We had Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes right next to them. And the bit that really sank in for me with that situation was I started talking about the mindset of the game, the mentality of the game, because I've never been the most talented person in any bullpen I've ever been a part of. I've never had the best stuff. I've never had the best repertoire or anything like that. I mean, I've played with some extremely talented people. But I think the biggest thing that has separated me as far as where that is, I've gone through the lowest of lows with being DFA'd 5 times. I've come back from that. I've been a month away from retiring from the game. I've been potentially one decision by an organization about going to Korea back in 2014. Like, there was a lot of times where there was a lot of sliding door moments that got me to where I am. And that has just built the mental side of the game in my head, that it doesn't matter what is going on. Like, I know I can beat whoever I'm going against, regardless of who they are, what they can do on the field, and anything else. And saying along those lines, and seeing all these like literally world-class athletes nodding along and going along with it, I mean, it just reiterated the the mindset that I've really tried to cultivate.
You get a diagnosis of cancer, right? Stops you in your tracks. And you went through the test, right? It was the first test, the blood was good. You're being told you don't have cancer. Then you find out you do.
Yeah, so July, I had some lumps on my neck. So one down here, a couple on the side, and then you can see the one, there's a scar under here. So there's that little scar under there right on the beard line. And lumps along there, didn't think anything of it, thought it was just stress. I was in a lot of pain in 22, like just body pain, whether it be knee, hip, back, elbow, shoulder.
It'd be easier to list the places that haven't been fixed. Yeah,
pretty much. And so got some blood work done. We're like, let's just get some blood work done just to make sure. Blood work came back clean. I have to get regular blood work for another thing anyway. So blood work came back clean. So I'm like, perfect. It's just probably stress. I'm not too worried about it. They're like, oh, we can give you an antibiotic. Like, no, I don't really want to take that during the season. I don't like the way they make me feel. They tend to, especially with the extremities and the fingers and trying to throw a ball as hard as you can and place it on a dime. It's hard to do when you don't feel your fingers well. So gets into November. We're about to go on vacation. I'm like, man, these lumps are still here. Let me call the doc and get that antibiotic script. Go in, and he goes, yeah, no, if they're still there now and it hasn't changed, like let's get some tests done. Let's make sure there's nothing more nefarious. And so then I start Googling everything, and I'm putting Hong Kong presses here, and I'm doing everything as far as I can. And it just kept going. And then you look at, I saw one thing, I remember seeing it, it was, if you have lumps and they're painful and they move, that's an infection. If they're not painful and solid, that's not good. That's more cancerous. And so I saw that, I'm like, well, and then got some more tests done, had a needle biopsy that they confirmed that it could be this. It's like, it's leaning towards this. It's not normal, but it's also not abnormal for the bit they got. So like, yeah, needle biopsy is the first indicator, but they're not definitive. So let's go in and cut it out. Cut it out, turned out it was cancer. Got lined up with the oncologist at Mayo Clinic and Dr. Alison Rosenthal, and kind of progressed from there. But it was always one thing where she was like, oh, you got no symptoms, so I'm assuming it's like a stage 2. I don't feel any lumps anywhere else. You should be fine. But like, let's go get a CAT scan. So a CAT scan came back, and it was just littered on here. Looked like I was wearing a black pearl necklace underneath. And then, like, okay, with that going, let's do a PET scan just to make sure where it is and how far it is. She get back, and she goes, well, you need to come back in. I'm like, she goes, it's not stage 2. I'm like, oh, perfect. She goes, stage 4. Well, it was one of those situations where at every point we're like, okay, it's been bad news after bad news after bad news. At some point, we'll have a little bit of good news. The good news came when it was like, it's stage 4. And it was stage 4, but I'm not worried, is what our doctor said. And saying that, it was like, yeah, you just got told you had stage 4 cancer, but the oncologist at the same time said, I'm not worried. That was such a relief to both of us, my wife and I. And yeah, it wasn't the easiest decision, or it wasn't the easiest kind of situation, but the decision was taken out of my hands, which in that situation, I don't want a decision. So like, oh, should I get treatment, should I not get treatment? Because we were umming and ahhing if it was stage 2, whether we just go immunotherapy, whether we go the full gambit, whether we do anything. And as soon as it came back stage 4, I was like, no, there's no option. This is what you're doing.
How quickly, so what's the timeline? How quickly did you start treatment?
So after the confirmation, so I got confirmed just before Christmas, I believe.
And so you got to keep it quiet.
Yeah, so I mean,
right? You can't let the media find out.
My parents are in town, we didn't tell them. My youngest sister and brother-in-law were in town, didn't tell them. And we were waiting, so every sports athlete, they kind of get second opinions on everything. Like if I stub my toe, I'm sending it to like 3 different doctors just to make sure. Well, we did the same thing. So I reached out to the team doctor who I told, you're not allowed to tell the team. Don't tell the team until we get this all figured out. And I want to be the person who tells them. So I don't want it leaking out and doing that way. So Doc called an oncologist known as the lymphoma legend in Chicago, and reached out to him. He overlooked all the data, all the tests and everything like that, and pretty much gave us the exact same diagnosis as Dr. Rosenthal. And at that point, I think that was on like the Thursday. We had chemo starting on the Monday. We told people on the Saturday, and I think we told the public on the Sunday. I think, right around there. But yeah, told my parents, told some close friends, and then, did that on the social media stuff. But obviously my agent and stuff knew as well because we were going through that. But it was pretty quick once we actually got that secondary diagnosis, the secondary confirmation.
And you, like you said, you're supposed to go 6 rounds. You went 4 rounds.
Yeah.
Like you kind of attacked this, like you attacked the 9th inning.
Yeah, so my chemo round, it was a very mild chemo. I didn't lose my hair. I had minimal side effects. I mean, I got sick the first round of the immunotherapy. So I was on RBs, Rituxan and Bendeka, which is the type of chemo I was on. Or Bendeka was the chemo, rituximab was the immunotherapy. I think it could be vice versa. But yeah, was doing that. I got sick on the immuno straight away. And the immunotherapy took 8.5 hours. The chemotherapy took 7 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was in a hospital for about 10, 11 hours. The first
Sitting
day.
in a chair, getting the
Lying in a bed.
lying in a bed.
And I was awake the first
With the
time.
drip just going and you're just taking
straight
it.
through the left arm. But I had planned all this out. I had like 20 hours of TV shows on an iPad. I had 4 books. I had headphones charged. Everything was ready. And then I slept for most of it. Because after I got sick, so what they do is they start you on a really low dosage of the immuno. So I can't remember what it was. I think it was like 15. And as soon as they kicked me up to 25 or 20 or whatever it was, I got sick immediately, which is a normal response. But it sucked. And so then once I needed some meds to get me kind of back to where I needed to be, and then did that, and I slept the most of the time the rest. And then that was round 1 of the first day. And then the second day is just a chemo and a shot, like a steroid shot in your arm. And then 28 days later, I do it all again. And then after the second round, because I handled the immunotherapy good, I got the rapid infusion on round 3 and 4. And after round 3, we took some scans. I can't remember if it was round 3 or round 4. I think it was round 3. After round 3, we took some more, like another PET scan. Showed up great, showed up clear. So they're like, yep, you've got to do the 4th one just as a kind of preventative measure. But I don't see the need to do rounds 5 and 6. And all you need to do is wait to, that was, round 4 was early April, so I think our home opener with Chicago last year was the home opener. And then you have to wait till the 18th of April, and then I got my secondary bone marrow biopsy. And that was just to prove beyond a doubt that it was eradicated for now. And I was throwing a bullpen on the 20th.